Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're continuing with the Dvar Malchut speech given by Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1992, very shortly before he had the stroke, which rendered him half paralyzed, and he couldn't speak anymore. And so here the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, is talking about, he's trying to reorient us about what reality is. And that we realize that reality really comes from the Torah. Good. Reality really comes from the Torah. And that
Recordings.
Good morning. Reality comes from the Torah. And even more that there's a purpose to reality. There's a purpose to the whole world. There's a purpose to what's going on. There's a reason that we're here. The reason that everyone's here. There's a reason that there was history, and that there's science, and that there's physics, and that there's astronomy, and there's all these things that are being studied. All of existence has a reason to it. And the reason to it is the future redemption, the goal, the future redemption. If so, there's ABC. A is the Torah. That's the beginning, that began everything. B is the creation, the whole entire world, everything that exists. And C is the goal of the creation, namely to reveal the plan of the plan of the Torah into the creation. So in one way, I saw this written with somewhere, I don't know if it's really accurate, but you can say maybe it is. There is what's called the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Everything like that before. The thesis, in other words, there's the idea, then there's, so to speak, the opposite of that idea, and then there's the synthesis of both of them. So that's the same thing. I don't know if you can really apply it, but we can try. We have the Torah, that's the whole purpose of the creation. Everything there is perfect. Then all of a sudden comes the creation, and the creation covers over the purpose. You get into the details, then things get a little bit sticky, right? Like everything. You have these wonderful ideas, and you try to apply them, then all of a sudden there's all these details you never would have thought of. The same thing as God. He created the world from the Torah. The world is perfect. The idea was perfect. But then when the world comes, then everything starts to get a little bit sticky. Adam sins. Then Cain kills Hevel, Cain kills Abel, and then after that there was the door of Enosh. It says they worshipped idols, and etc. Until finally came the flood. That was really bad news, and God had to wipe out the whole world. But He left Noah and started over again. And then things went up and down, down and up. That's the whole history of the world. That's all in the middle. And finally, there's going to be the final Geula, redemption, when we're going to realize that all of the bad things that occurred really had no true existence whatsoever. They didn't really truly exist. All these, Napoleons and Genghis Khan and all these things that all the history books are filled with were basically there in order to give historians or history professors or whatever a living, right? They're giving a living. It's interesting things. And also to learn from them certain principles in life and what mistakes not to make. But basically it's centered around this whole beginning and the end. The beginning is the Torah. That's what the Torah, that's what the world, that was the blueprint from the world, how God expressed His will and His wisdom. And then we have the whole entire world, which has been going on now basically the world has been going on for 5,700 years. People write to me and say, what are you talking about? Science says differently. Science has proved differently. Science says, what is incontrovertible facts. You can obviously see that that's not true, because each one of the scientists had different ideas. There's no one, accepted idea of how old the earth is, how old the world is. So some people say it's 5 billion years old. Some is 5 trillion years old. Some quadrillion years old. There's some that say there is no age. It's just there was always something. The Greek philosophers, there was always some sort of an ether or something like that. And then there are some that say that the world existence cannot be more than 5,000. I saw somewhere. There's some scientists that say that we can't really prove the world was one. course, everybody asked the question, how can it be there's fossils and there's dinosaurs and there's bones and it's like the joke I told you about, there's 5 billion and 5 years old. It's extrapolating from what we see now to what was in the past. So the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe explains that very simply, just like the first man, according to Judaism, the first man was created complete, right? If there would come a doctor and check out the first man, Adam, 1 second after God created him, then he would say he was like 20 years old because he was created complete with all of his, all of the follicles and all of the corpuscles and all of his, his nerve system and everything like that, and his excretory system and his reproductive system. He was created at a reproductive system. He had children just hours after he was created. So everything was created complete. So also the world was created complete with all the light beams in the middle of their 20 billion year trip from where who knows where they started, but the light beams that they've got from the outer space stars and galaxies, so they measure the light and the intensity and etc. They come to the conclusion the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second, and therefore it must have been going how many millions and billions of miles in order to get here. So God created it in the middle of its journey. That's all. He created it complete. Okay, let's go. Nevertheless, the point is, Judaism has no proof that the world is 5,700 years old. We believe that it is, but we also believe that the Torah is true, and we believe that God gave the Torah. And in the Torah, it says clearly that the world was created 5,720. There's also rabbis that also don't agree. There's also big rabbis that try to, fit in this with science, that every year is really, they said that there's a time warp and a light warp and a. Okay, let's not go into that. Let's just go into what we're talking about. Us, me, and you right now. What's going on over here? We're part of the world. Yes, we're part of the Torah. Yes, we're part of the goal. Yes, we're part of all these three things. Aleph, Beis, Gimel, the beginning, which is the Torah, God's plan for the world. The middle, which is the world, and the future redemption. The Rebbe said before, that's Aleph is the Torah. Anochi, the first of the 10 commandments, is the Aleph. Beit is Breshit, when God created the world. Gimel is Geula. Okay. What is the good thing about the first tablets? So we said we can also see the same thing with in the tablets itself. When God gave the tablets, there was the first tablets. That's the Torah. That's the Aleph. Then after that, there was the sin of the golden calf. That's like the base. And then after that is the Gimel, the Geula, future redemption. I got something in my eye. I don't know. Okay. Then there's the Gimel. That's the Geula. I should have this touched up with Photoshop. And they say there's the joke about the person, he went to the doctor, he couldn't afford an operation, so he had his x-rays touched up. That's something I could have my eye touched. Okay, let's go. Milas aluchos arishonos. What's the good thing about the first tablets? This is where we left off. So we have the first tablets, the sin of the golden calf, and finally the second tablets. Okay, the second tablets is in some ways even higher than the first tablets because it came along with all the explanations and all of the midrash and the Talmud and all these other, etc. Which the first tablets were just, that was it, the word of God, and without explanations. But what is good about the first tablets? That's the Aleph. The Torah, first of all, the first tablets is that the tablets themselves, the stone themselves, the sapphire stones, they were made by God. And the writing on it was also God. This idea of the first tablets, if you think about it, it's a pretty bizarre idea. What do you mean? God gave a book. That's all God can do. He can write a book. It's a book in the library. He had a book, so he wrote it on stones. What type of a God does a thing like that? Gives a God himself. Let it just fall from heaven. There's all these religions that say somebody found a book in the middle of a book fell from heaven. It's made of gold or something. God personally gave this book to 3 million people. Everybody saw him speak. Everybody saw Moses come down with these tablets. True that he broke the tablets. Nobody saw them, but the tablets were always there with the Jewish people. The broken tablets always remained. They didn't throw them in the garbage or something. They kept the tablets. They were also in the temple. It says that the broken tablets went out with them to war whenever the Jews went out to war. What's the good thing about the first tablets? This is like the Torah, how the Torah is given from above. This gives us the power la'avoda, to serve gam, also below. That's the bait and the gimel. Bait, we said, is the world, and gimel is the redemption, future redemption, when God will be revealed in the world, everywhere. We'll see the creator and the creation. Where do we get the power to do this? Is the Aleph. Remember, you have to remember that God gave the Torah to the Jews. He didn't just give it to Moses and tell him to keep it in the Holy of Holies and not, only the select few can know what is written there. Everybody knew what was written there. And it was given for everyone in all the Jewish people. It just that it was too intense. The revelation was too intense, and the Jewish people couldn't take it. But nevertheless, why did God do such a thing like that? In order to give us the power to complete the mission in the world, namely the bait and the gimel. Take the world and refine it. So the power comes from the Torah. The Torah is the Aleph. That's the first. Who Rosh, this is the beginning. Kol ha'otiyot, of all the letters of the Aleph Beit. The world was created from these letters, right? It wasn't that it just was created. It's being created right now. But that's just the external. But Hiyocha Aleph, because this letter Aleph on its own, a revelation from above, Ulo be'erich, it is incomparable, ve'enu choder, it does not permeate the tachtonim into the world. That's the Beit and the Gimel, right? When God tried to do it, the Jewish people said, we can't take it. Moses was able to take the revelation, but the Jewish people said, we can't do it. It's too much. It's something like Isaac wanted to bless Esav. It was just too much. It was too much of a blessing, right? It would be just too powerful for him. He wouldn't have been able to take it. He wanted to fix up the world. So because of that, Shayach b'zeh inyan hashvira. And therefore, because the first tablets were so incredibly holy and high that they couldn't be used in the world, and the whole purpose of them is to be used in the world. The Jewish people couldn't digest this holiness, so therefore it was possible because they couldn't be used. It's relevant that they could be broken. Because from the creation, Adayin lo muchana, the world is not prepared for this. And the whole point of Judaism, as we repeat it over and over again, is to make this physical world a perfect place. We're not interested in going to heaven. There is such a thing as heaven, and there is such a thing as rewards. But that's not why we're here. Where heaven is like, getting the gold watch when you retire, from your pension. And therefore, Hatchalat Torah, the beginning of the Torah that we actually have. What's the first letter in the Torah? Beit. It starts with Beit, not with Aleph. The Torah begins, the first word in the Torah is Bereshit. Talks about the creation of the world. Because the whole purpose is this, that the Torah should be drawn into the world. That everything in the world should act in the way that God created it to act. And it was created from the Torah. But this all depends on the Jewish people using it properly. This was done by means of the 26 generations from the beginning of the creation of the world until the giving of the Torah. How long was the Torah after the world was created? It was 2,448 years after the world was created, the Torah was given. It says that there was 27 generations from Adam until Moses. Masha Enkin, which is not the case by means of the tablets, the last tablets, Shaboim, that they come by means of the service of man, Tshuva. The second tablets that came, it wasn't just a gift from God, it came because the Jewish people, they repented, they returned, they sinned with the golden calf, and they repented. The tablet, therefore, the second tablets that they received, they are the handwork of Moses. And they weren't broken, and those tablets were put complete in the Holy Temple. The broken tablets were also there, but the main thing was the whole tablets. that fills the purpose of the creation, which the creation is talking about me and you. Right? Why are we here? Shegila Olam said that the revelation they revealed in this world, that the world exists for the sake of the Torah. And therefore, Nifal, they said, there's brought by means of this, Eloi, the Torah, the highness of the Torah itself, the last tablets, second tablets, that they're not broken, exactly the opposite. Not only are the second tablets not broken, they fix what's broken. They give doubled power for Toshia. What is it? Doubled power, inspiration, and direction, and stability. Often Torah, in the way that the Torah remains always complete, even when it's physical in this world, often nitzchi, eternal, forever or forever. Until Shazem Mevi, this brings to the whole idea of the Gimel. What do we say? Aleph is the Torah, Beit is the creation, and Beit is also the second tablets. And that brings to Gimel, Geula, the future redemption. Sha'az, then Tidkala B'Shlemus, it'll be completely revealed, Milas Tshuva, the highness of Tshuva, of the return to consciousness of the Jewish people on the sin that they did from the golden calf. So the golden calf, again, was this, it repeated the sin of Adam. And the main point of the sin was egotism. The people followed their feelings. They didn't follow what God said. They followed their natural feelings. And God creates a person with natural feelings so that that every human being should defy or articulate or whatever it is, work with their natural feelings so that they're directed to the Creator. And when everything in the world is directed to the Creator, then the world becomes healthy. It's like the example that I gave that, Uncle Joe or whatever, he went into a deep coma. He's been in a coma for 5,000 years. In our case, let's make it more realistic. He's been in a coma for 50 years. Right? People go and visit him. Once in a while, he sort of moves his eyes, gives a little bit of hope, right? But you get used to it. That's Uncle Joe. The nurses take care of him. They get a good job. The hospital takes money for the bed. They have to feed him intravenously. They change the this and that. That's the way he is. Once in a while, he dreams. He says a word, something like that, right? In his dream. That's how the whole world has been going since the sin of the golden calf. All of a sudden, Uncle Joe wakes up, right? Oh, where am I? What happens? Right now, all the nurses can say, well, we're out of a job. What are we going to do? And the people say, well, who are we going to come and visit now? We used to come and visit him like twice a week. What are we going to do now? But he's awake. The same thing is with the world. But the world is in a comatose state. All of these weird things you see going on with the woke and the coronas, with the shots, with all this stuff, and all the decadence that's going on in the world, and the insanity and the unclearness, the unclarity, right, and the worried and the frustration and the hatred, it's all going on. That's just like a dream. It's just a dream state that's as a result of our comatose unawareness of what's real. As soon as it becomes real, then the world becomes really active, really dynamic, right? There's no more poverty and ignorance and aggression and depression and addictions. That's the whole thing of the second tablet. Second tablets come to fix up the world. This will come by means, but it had to be by means of breaking the first tablets. That's what was namely the first tablets means that God did everything himself. And the second tablets is that we are participants. We are partners with God. And that's the second tablets that gives us power to be partners with the creator of the universe, to fix up, to wake up Uncle Joe, to wake up the whole entire creation in our case. The Malos Tachlis Abriya, that the whole world, the purpose of the creation, Bishvila Torah, the whole world is for the sake of the Torah, that we be able to feel the creator in the creation. Or in simple language, we'll feel that we're being created, that God loves us. God loves us, he's creating us, he's enlivening us, and we're here for a purpose. Nimsa, so comes out. Sheba Parshas Kitisa and Nimtzaim, that we see in this week's Torah portion, there are all these three stages. Aleph, Beit, Gimel. The beginning, the first tablets. Beit, that's Breshit Borah, that's the sin of the golden calf. And the Gimel is the end of the Torah. And the second tablets, Le'ene Kol Yisrael, which that shows on the future redemption. Good that you broke them. Here he says that here, yeah, good. Why was it good that you broke them? Because by means of the breaking of the tablets, we got the second tablets. Kol, Gimel, and Yanim, all these three things are in this week's Torah portion, Kitisa. And they come in one continuum. One continued, it's not like different laws. Sometimes you have in the Torah, there's different laws, different stories, different chapters that are almost unrelated. They're not even according to the order of the things that happen. You look, for instance, in Parshas Mishpatim, which had a few weeks ago. So it tells about all these laws, right? And then all of a sudden in the end, it talks about things that happened before God gave the Torah to Moses. So it seems it's sort of like a little bit unrelated. It's not really like chronologically, at least, in one order. But here everything is, yes, in chronologically in order. Chronologically, there was the first tablets, the sin of the golden calf, the breaking of the tablets, and the second tablets. Says the Rebbe, so what's wrong with that? Says the Rebbe, at first glance, this is not so simple. That were given from God to the sin and the breaking of the tablets that came because of what was missing on the Jewish people below. Even though that this brings afterwards to the higher level, but nevertheless, it's a sin, right? It's not really a nice thing. Let's say, for instance, let's say eulogizing somebody. Okay, I'll just give the example, right? Somebody passes away and you come to eulogize. Now, in a eulogy, you always say good things as much as possible, right? You stand up and you say, this person was a wonderful person. He was really great and we really will miss him. True, he did a lot of sins. He ran the mafia and he killed a lot of people and he brought a lot of drugs into the world. He brought a lot of pain and suffering. You don't say anything like that in one thing. You want to put that in a separate thing. Put it separately. Don't bring it all one together. Well, that's what they did here in this Torah portion. It says God gave the first tablet. They're so wonderful. The second tablet. True, the Jewish people did the worst sin possible. They worshipped the golden calf. And when they were worshiping the golden calf, they did all sorts of other sins that came along with it. And you don't do anything like that. Why mention this in one continuum? It says, maybe we can say the explanations like this. Gimel and Yanim, these three things, they are the order that God decided. Shekol and Yanim, that everything that there is in the world always is three. Aleph, Beit, Gimel. Aleph, Beit, Gimel. Beginning, middle, and end. Shala'achar Reshita'in, that after everything comes the middle. Right? First of all, you have to, after the beginning of the thing, there comes the middle of the thing. And by means of this, you get the goal. You get the goal. Maybe we can take an example, right? We have, like we said, we gave an example before. The automobile, right? What was the beginning of the automobile? Who was it? I don't know who discovered that there can be combustion. The principles of combustion. And then you can, all of a sudden somebody gets an idea, listen, let's link this thing up to some tires and the tires will move and then we can figure out how to direct these tires and make a car. So make a car, let's say, we already have something like that. We have a bicycle. So we put they get these ideas, the idea, that's the beginning. That's step number one, the idea. Step number two is the car. You have a car, you have the whole process of making the car, and you have making it iron and how you forge the iron and you make the factories and this, and finally that's it. You have the car. That's bait. That's the second stage, and the third stage is what it's used for. What's the goal of it? What's the purpose? Right. This is I've come to the conclusion. This strange. This must be the computer, somehow or the computer, because this is a new, we're using a new camera. So it's the computer. Okay, we'll have to figure it out, maybe get a new computer. Okay, so we have everything that God makes. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's how things are. That's what the world is. Everything is limited. Okay, except for God. God is the creator. He creates this whole business, but he creates it according to these mystical, spiritual, Kabbalistic, whatever you want to call it, principles. That's what all these books of Kabbalah are talking about, right? What are the what are the dynamics of the creation? God, you can't understand what God is. As we said so many times before, how we say, and there's a prayer we say in the morning, Adon Olam. Adon Olam, God is the master of the world. And we say, he is one, and there's no number two that you can compare him to. Hu echad ve'ein sheni laham shilo lahachbira. That you can compare, you can't compare God to anything. You can't join God to anything. God is not comparable. He's not, he creates everything that exists. He's so infinitely, infinitely real that it's totally out of the realm of anything that we think is existence. What we think is existence is not really real. It's just created. But the fact of the matter is that God is creating everything and he cares about everything. So God is the beginning. That's the Torah. That's how God set everything up. Torah is the beginning. That's the Aleph. Everything in the world has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So after the beginning comes the middle, and by means of this comes the goal. Yeshlomar, we can say that that's the Aleph, that's the beginning, right? Beit, who not only in regarding to the creation of the world, we said that Tzimtzum, how God conceals his oneness and creates a world. Also, the results from this, until there can be also a world where there are sins and where there can be breakage. This was made by the first contraction of God. We said that God contracted himself. This is one of the big mysteries that the Arizal in the books of Kabbalah, he realized, how is it that if God is infinite and is completely incomparable to any spiritual levels or anything like that, his existence is totally out of our realm of comprehension. Even the angels can't comprehend, right? What exactly this means. So, so what does God do? God does this process which is called tzimtzum, that he hides over his oneness. By means of this hiding over the oneness, so God gave a place that there can be in this world also that we can hide over the truth and do sins, and that's what God wanted. That we have the ability to do this, and that we should defy this ability. That's why, by the way, if people do sins, that God can forgive them any sins, because God was the one who set the whole thing up. He set the whole thing up that we're apt to make mistakes. So therefore, if we can say, okay, God, I got the point, I got the point, but you have to admit the reason I did these mistakes is because you made these, this possibility in the world, that's the way you made me. So it's explained that afterwards, so God concealed himself. According to Hasidut, this is according to the sentence that says, Nora alilot al bnei Adam. That this is awesome, how do you say, it's in Psalms, right? The Psalms, you can look in 66. Awesome, what do you want to call it? Pitfalls you made for people. Right? God, you set up the whole thing that 99.99% we're not going to get through this, unscathed. That's how you made it, the world. Sheched Eitzadat, that the sin of the tree of knowledge, this came by means of Alila Nitlabo, that God set up man. That's how we programmed us, that we are, how do you say, prone to be breakable. And we break everything also we get our hands on. That was the first man. That man should have done what God said and ignored all of the urges that God put in the world was close to impossible, but it wasn't impossible. And because Adam didn't, afterwards, Adam was created by God directly. So Adam didn't do it. So God said, you got the whole thing wrong. That's not why I created the world, so that you should do what you want. That God made the world, that sometimes selfishness overpowers a person and he sins. Harizem, Mishum, this is because Shemaila, the Asito, Shemila from above, Hesitu alav Yitzhahora, God sicks on us, like sick a dog on somebody, that God sends these weird ideas into our mind and urges into our heart, and that we should do sins and we should do bad things. We should do bad things. And if you think about it with the Jewish people, I mean, it's ridiculous. What's a sin? To light a light on Shabbat, that's a sin. What could possibly be wrong with lighting a light on Shabbat? It's dark in the room. You turn on the light. Oh, you did a sin. It's on Shabbat. Okay, but now I can see. I can read a book. I don't like sitting in the dark. I don't start. Okay, that's the rules of the game, and that's the name of the game. So what does God expect from us? So therefore, if we do something wrong, so it's very easy for God to forgive us, because God is certainly understanding that He set the whole world up. But on the other hand, that's no excuse to do bad. Why? Because God, in His great kindness, He wanted that the Jewish people should come to an elevation, the highest elevation possible. Namely, that we should realize that we have the power to overcome and to even transform this 99.99% of our enemy. As small as we are, we have the power to transform the whole business. And therefore, therefore, God did this trick on us, and He put us temporarily, like it says in a small time, in at least in a small way, in order to bring an aliyah shelo be'erach, in order to bring an elevation which is incomparable. Not just a small. Here, let's say, I'll give you the example. This sort of wrecks up my previous example, but I'll give it to you. Here we have Uncle Joe, he said, is in a coma. And they wake him up from the coma. He gets out of the coma, and he says, why'd you do that? Now I'm going to do sins. When I open my eyes, I see all sorts of things that I desire, people's money, people's this, all sorts of pleasures. Leave me in my comatic state. Not only a fool would say a thing like that, but on the other hand, he's got a good point. He's got a good point. If a person is in a coma, so he's exempt from all the responsibility. There's no challenges, no enemies, no thing to fight, no things to. But nevertheless, that's what a person would want. So that's what God did. He took us and put us into this world, and He, so to speak, gave us this temptations of the world. Would it be better to be dead and to be out? No, it's not. Not so. But the fact of the matter is that even when Uncle Joe wakes up, and he says, okay, now I'm going to go and do sins. I'm going to go to the bar, and I'm going to make up for all the pleasures that I had before. You say, listen, Uncle Joe, you got the whole thing wrong. The fact of the matter is that you're in a different type of a coma. Now you're in a coma of values, of meaning. Before you were in a physical coma. Same thing. God created the world from nothing. Before that, the world was nothing. There was no temptations. There was no problems. Excuse me, just one second. Just give me one moment here, please. Oh. That's one of the advantages of giving classes in the yeshiva. Your wife doesn't talk in the next room. Okay, here we go. Everything has its pros and cons. So why did God make the world that everyone is so prone to make a mistake? Why? He says, because God wants us to find inside of us the power to overcome this. Listen, if you think about it, it's not so. For instance, you ever watch sports? You have sports. So you have like professional basketball and professional tennis and professional boxing and professional this, right? The stronger the opposition, the greater the interest, the greater the victory. Right? If you want your team to win, so put them against children or against people who just don't know the rules, or take people from homes from the aged, and make boxing matches, and then your side will for sure win. Then your side will sure win. But that's not the way. If the opposition is strong, then it's a big thing. How much more so if the opposition is immensely strong and the odds are stacked against you 1,000 to 1. From that you make movies. That's what movies are made from, right? The one little child, an orphan child, that he single-handedly builds himself up and to be, the multimillionaire or something like that. Who knows what people value? But still, a person that overcomes tremendous odds. This is a big a big accomplishment. That's what God wanted. God wanted, he put us in the world so that we would overcome these incredible odds that are against us, stacked against us. But by means of this, we reveal real truth. We reveal a type of a truth that has no, that there's not after it any sort of how do you say, an interruption at all. Like it's going to be in the future redemption. What's going to be in the future redemption? People will value truth. They'll value honesty. They'll value love. They'll value life. People will not consider ever lying or cheating or being lazy or being depressed or being addicted. All these things are just ridiculous, lustful. These are all just aberrations of reality. But what? How does a person come to this conclusion? Shabbat comes by means of a tremendous descent in exile. The Geula nitzitz in an eternal redemption that there's not after it any exile. Adarabah, even more mitosafet, it adds even more higher and higher levels, elevation after elevation. We can go from level to level, and we will see God, it says in Zion, by the Jewish people, in Jerusalem. This is in addition to the fact that any time that there is a descent, it's always for an elevation. And you can tell this to people that are, God forbid, sick or crippled or whatever. Every time that God gives a person a difficulty, it's always for some type of an elevation that comes afterwards. There were some people, even at the last moment of their life, I advise everyone to read, there's books by Professor Viktor Frankl, but there's especially this one book that he wrote, Professor Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And he brings amazing cases that he had himself of people that found that meaning is such a precious thing that some people just in the last moment of their life, that's the most meaningful moment in their life. They see, they've conquered the dragon, right? The whole world, everything around them is telling them to be depressed and miserable and, well, I'm dying, I'm this. And some people say, no, exactly the opposite. Every single second is precious. I never realized it until now. And thank God for every instant of life that I have, and that I can smile and I can make people happy when they come to visit me. Hello, I'd say a good word. In such a situation, this inspires everybody, right? To be happy when you win the lottery, it's no big deal, but to be happy in such a bad situation, this is very inspiring. In any case, it's a type of an accomplishment which cannot be explained in any sort of normal terms. In our world, we say if you get your picture in the paper, that's successful. When a person is honest, a good mother, a good father, a good family man, that's a good. What's good about that? This is regarding a Yerida Atzmo Lamiti Ta. So it comes out that the descent was not really a descent. Elo Aderech, it was just a means to get to this higher level of revelation. And similarly, in the sin of the golden calf, which this is similar to the sin of the tree of knowledge, like it says in the Gemara, Yisrael at the Egel. The only reason that the Jewish people made the golden calf was only in order litain pitchan peh, in order to give an opportunity for people to repent, to return. Loya Yisrael roim lo somaisa. The Jewish people were not really, relevant to do such a sin. And so why did the Jewish people all do it? Says they did it in the future generations, that when a person does a sin, he can say, that's it, I'm finished, man. I've just gone outside. God hates me. I'm cursed forever. Says, listen, don't worry about it. You didn't do anywhere near as bad a sin as the Jews when they worshiped the golden calf. That's the worst sin of all. Everybody heard directly from God, don't worship idols. Directly from God. They didn't hear it from a rabbi. They didn't read it in a book. They didn't hear it from their mother and father. They heard directly from God, don't worship idols. And they did it just 40 days later. The worst sin possible. And nevertheless, they got forgiven. There's no sin in the world that's anywhere near as bad as that. And that's why God made the Jews do it, in order to give later generations, because he knew people were going to do sins, to give them an opportunity to say, listen, I'm going to do the same thing. How do you get forgiven for your sins? You ask God for forgiveness. You say, God, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm going to change my ways. And you change your ways. And what if you don't change your ways? So you do the same thing again. You say, I'm sorry, God. I didn't mean it. I'm going to try to change my ways. And God forgives you. And you don't change your ways. No matter what you do and how many times you do a sin, it's nowhere near as bad as the sin of the golden calf. And God forgave them for that. That's why it's written in the Torah to tell us that sinning is very, very, very probable. And it's very, how do you say, there's a word for it. Okay, probable is the word, but it's very likely to happen. The world is set up in such a way that it's very unlikely that people are not going to go against God. Very unlikely. And repeatedly so. And that's the way God set up the world, so that people would be able to realize the reason for making a mistake is simply egotism. I want to be the boss. I'm going to do what I want. That's a natural thing, that God wants a person to have egotism. But he also wants to use it for the proper way. In order to make it use it for the proper way, is you have to make mistakes. You have to have, that's called, in English, it's called experience. Experience is holy. But that's why God made this whole story about the golden calf, so that people would be inspired and encouraged that it's never too late. Kamudgash, like it's explained, that's the Aleph, that's the first tablets, perfect. That's the letter Beit in Bereshit. That's already the imperfect world. God made it purposely so we should fix it up. Shekolel, this includes, Bereshit includes also the descent and sin. And because of the fact that the world was created, that it seems to be far from God. Just the fact that etzem inyano, mevater, the fact that just the world exists seemingly as a separate existence, this explains that before this, there was an Aleph. Before this, there was only God, Aleph. When it comes to be a base, it seems that there's something else except for God. There's a creation, there's a world. And the fact of the matter is that God created it that way in order that you realize that this is only step 2. This is not the final step. You did sins, that's not the final. That's not step number 3. It's just one step that comes after the Aleph, the oneness of God, comes step number 2, which is life, experience, world. And this brings to the Gimel, the Geula, the future redemption. Okay, there's a lot more to do, but and we finished a 1/4 of this. We've run out of time. And what we've said is a capsule of what the Rebbe says, and it should only be that we say internalize. Oh, we internalize what we learned here up to this point. That would be pretty good. That's the whole point of creation, of the Aleph, of the base, is the Gimel, that we should be partners of God, with God. And that's the whole thing of the future redemption of Moshiach. He's going to make everyone, activate everyone. Everyone is going to be dynamic and joyous in our meeting the challenges of life and serving the Creator, bringing the Creator into our thought, speech, and action, in our hearts and into our minds. That'll make the world a perfect place. We'll see that human beings are infinitely more interesting and positive than we can possibly imagine. Right? Every human being is a treasure house, a gold mine. Oh, and that's the whole purpose of the Aleph is the Creator, Beit is the creation, and Gimel is the redemption, the connection of both of them together, that we'll see that the world is being created by God every moment. Good. That is today. Now let's do the Yom Yom. 2 Yom Yoms.